Welcome back to another episode of Geekorama, a podcast by geeks for geeks. We are produced by superherofiction.com, the one-stop shop for all your superhero novel needs. We are your hosts.
I'm Jeremy Flagg, author of the Children of Nostradamus universe.
And I am T.L. Heinrich, author of the Vigilantes superhero universe.
For this week's episode, we're going to be discussing Season 2 of The Umbrella Academy. The good, the bad, the completely weird and outlandish, I guess.
Yeah.
That's really the only way to describe it.
It is.
But before we get there, we've got some pop culture trivia about The Umbrella Academy.
Yes, so I thought I'd do a little season 1, season 2 trivia, just some really interesting things that I found. I don't think there's any spoilers in this part of the show, but I am going to lay down a spoiler warning kind of early. If you haven't finished it and you want to finish it spoiler free, you might want to come back to the deep dive after you've done that. So, pop culture trivia for the Umbrella Academy, season 1. Aidan Gallagher, who played Five, at the time of season 1's filming, he was not allowed to be on set during any gunfight scenes because of child labor laws. And so a body double was used. So he physically had to be removed from the set and then brought back on for any after shots of fight scenes where guns were used, which I thought was probably a logistics nightmare, but oh my God, that kid can act. And the Phantom of the Opera medley that Vanya plays in the first episode when the characters are introduced is an arrangement that is performed by the transcendent violinist Lindsey Stirling. If you don't know Lindsey Stirling, go find her stuff on either iTunes or Spotify, wherever you get music. She's amazing. And last but not least for season 1 trivia, My Chemical Romance frontman Gerard Way penned the original comic series, which I just thought was awesome. A little bit of season 2 trivia. Ellen Page collaborated with the showrunners to ensure that Vanya and Sissy's relationship didn't turn out to be a tragedy, and for which I will forever be grateful to her for. The crew did, so there's a scene where they're all in an elevator together. They're going up to this tiki lounge, and Luther farts. And it's funny, and everybody's grossed out, ew, and he's like, oh, I'm just really nervous. The crew never got a clean take of that scene. Not one. They did it over and over again, and somebody inevitably laughed. So what they did, if you go back and you watch that scene, the actor that played Diego has his head down, and he's kind of shaking because he's trying really hard not to show that he's cracking up. He's trying to hide behind Luther, and it is awesome. The only scene, so the second season is supposed to be set completely in Dallas, Texas, right? Right around the time of the Kennedy assassination, but they filmed pretty much the entire season in Toronto. The only scene that they actually went to Dallas for was the grassy knoll, which I thought was super interesting. Last but not least, the cast did not get the final pages of the script for episode 10 until closer to shooting. So not one of them started the shooting season 2 knowing exactly how everything was going to end, which I thought was very Marvel Cinematic Universe of them. I've included a link for a really fun interview video that was done with the cast over Zoom. And you can find out all kinds of little secrets. You can listen to Robert Sheehan's, oh my God, delightful Irish accent. I didn't know he was Irish, but dear God, I could listen to him all day long. And you find out like some of the takes that were weird on set, who got injured because there were some injuries that happened on the set. It's a really fun video if you love the behind the scenes stuff. You just click the link at the bottom of the pop culture trivia in the notes. And that's trivia for today.
I did not, I don't know. So the Kennedy assassination plays a role in one of my books. And so weirdly enough, this season kind of rotated around a question that is in my book. And I've seen the grassy knoll multiple times looking at photos and stuff, but seeing it actually with people on it, and it wasn't very knoll-y. Like,
no.
I expected something more, and it's it's like 40 square feet of grass.
Yeah, it's very infamous and very ominous too I hate to say it like this, but in the mythos of the Kennedy assassination and all the conspiracy theories that go along with it. But then when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's it.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I expected aliens or
yeah, crop
something.
circles, something. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's just a little patch of grass in front of a building.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I definitely noticed the Diego laughing thing, which I just kind of assumed it was, it fits the personality. So
yeah, I didn't notice it first time around, but then I went and found it and I was like, wow, that's so obvious. How did I not see that? And the other thing they said too, Tom Hopper, the one that plays Luther, first of all, he's British. Didn't know that.
Yep.
But when he's telling Vanya, yeah, you caused the apocalypse, you blew up the moon, they almost didn't get a clean take of that from his point of view because he kept laughing. He was like, I don't know why, but it's the most ridiculous thing. Ellen Page blew up the moon. He's like, I couldn't say it.
It's definitely, because it's an ensemble cast that has multiple storylines, like it definitely, the characters got more story basically.
Yeah.
And I just thought the together versus the apart, it was good. And we'll talk more about that in the deep dive.
We will. So what are you geeking out about?
So this week I actually have a continuation of my art obsession, but it's transformed into something creepily new.
Okay.
If you have not seen it yet, there is a series on Amazon that I am going to strongly suggest every geek go check out. It's called Tales from the Loop. It is an anthology. So all the episodes connect because of the location, but they're completely independent storylines.
Oh, wow.
And it is a perfect blend of retrofuturism, and the storytelling takes precedent. And the reason that I thought that this was so cool, one, I was told you need to watch it. Two, you can only watch one episode a night because otherwise you'll, beat your head off a wall. And I was like, okay, let's, my binge lifestyle.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode and I was like, okay, we're going to hit pause. Don't continue.
Wow. Because it was so deep, or because it was bad?
It was so good. And you needed time to digest it. It is, I kind of refer to it as elegant melancholy.
Ooh.
And the best part is the entire concept for this is based on a narrative art book created by Simon, I'm going to butcher this, sorry, Stalenhag, and the Zahn does it justice. So I went and looked up the book that it's based off of. It's all in Swedish, so,
Oh, wow.
You can read that. But it's art with just kind of narratives to explain the art, like you would find in an art gallery. And it's this weird mixture of mythology and Swedish ethos put into futurism, but all the future aspects are a little retro feel. And so in the first episode, there's such an obvious twist in the story. The obvious twist is coming, and they twisted the twist, and I was like, huh. I'm so used to predicting the ending that you just kind of got to go along for the ride. But the first episode follows a young girl, and there's not a lot of dialogue. There's just an atmosphere to it. And there is a emotional forward concept happening.
Wow, this sounds really deep.
Yeah, I was not expecting it whatsoever. And at the same time, like the idea of the loop is because they built a particle accelerator underneath the town, and all the townspeople work at it.
Okay.
But this has been transformed a little bit, and we don't know what the thing is that they're working on.
Okay.
And in the first episode, it even kind of touches upon that, and it leaves everything kind of clouded in mystery. So it's not a feed it to you plot line. But I'm the king of multitasking while watching movies, and I found myself like glued to the TV.
Oh, wow.
Which that is probably the highest praise I can give television at the moment.
I'm going to have to check that out.
And the art is so beautifully rendered in the Amazon series. Whoever was the showrunner was like, we must absolutely stay true to the original book. So art and television, this is a beautiful blend. If you are a fan of sci-fi, but you want a story that is different, but still, like, I knew what the twist was, but they tweaked it so it wasn't predictable. So
yeah, so it was fresh.
Yeah, I would highly suggest checking it out. And the first episode, the acting was phenomenal because it was just emotion riddled story. Yeah, and and there's a two-legged robot that just sits off in the background. Don't know why. Just there. So I'm really looking forward to gonna watch episode 2 tonight because
that's awesome. Something to look forward to. That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a one episode at a time. Like you need to digest it.
Yeah, it's like a chocolate torte. Like if you eat that whole thing, you're gonna be sick, kind of a thing. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely check it out. I left a link for the art book. And if you have Amazon Prime, it's on there. So definitely check it out.
Awesome.
What are you geeking out about?
So I've been sitting on this until this series, the first season finished. Not the series, the first season. And that is Stargirl on the CW. I had very low expectations. I didn't know who Stargirl was. My husband was super excited about it. Starman and Stargirl are like Silver Age heroes. And so I didn't really know what to expect. And so after Crisis on Infinite Earths, for those of you that are total CW DC Universe geeks, you know that that Supergirl, the Flash, like basically all the superheroes now reside on one Earth, but they did show you other Earths. So like Doom Patrol was on one Earth and Stargirl was on another. So Stargirl does take place on a totally different Earth. And the design of the show is so gorgeously 1950s retro love letter. There are all of these subtle and then not so subtle touches, like the Pat, who's played by Luke Wilson. And I'm not a Luke Wilson fan, but I really love him in the show. He was Stripesy. That was his name when Starman was alive, and Starman was part of the Justice Society of America. So like we were familiar with the Justice League, but the Justice Society of America was more like, I think, Golden and a little Silver Age heroes. And then you had the Injustice Society of America, which is kind of like it's the anti-Justice Society. So the show, the pilot episode opens on Christmas with this epic battle between the Justice Society and the Injustice Society, and we see Starman die. And Luke Wilson as Stripesy is there. He gets Starman to safety, and they have this exchange while Starman is dying. And Starman has a cosmic staff. The origins of the staff are really fuzzy, but that's kind of where he gets his power set from. So he gives the staff to Stripesy to take care of until it selects another person to take on the mantle. So this is like 10 years later. Pat has married a single mom and Pat also has a son. So they're both single parents. They get together. It's a blended family. And the daughter is named Courtney. She's 15. She's a moody, grumpy teenager. She doesn't want a new dad. She doesn't want to move to Blue Valley, Nebraska, out in the sticks. So it's that kind of thing. And she doesn't like Pat. Pat's trying super hard to be dad, and her real life dad was supposed to come visit her on the night that Starman died, and he didn't. And she has a locket with his picture in it, and it looks very similar to Starman. So there's this question throughout the series, is Starman her dad? And she thinks that he is. And but anyway, I'm getting caught up in like all the little bits of the story, but I really was surprised at how much I loved it. First of all, it's only like, I think 12 episodes, which is great. 10 to 12 episodes, I think, should be the new norm. You get this tight, beautifully constructed story. The tension was great in every single episode, because what you find out is the Injustice Society ended up putting down roots in Blue Valley, Nebraska, like basically your quintessential awesome small town. And you find this out throughout the first couple of episodes. And Stargirl is convinced that they killed her dad, and so she's on this quest, and she assembles a team. So she basically resurrects the Justice Society with her teenage friends, and they're all outcasts for one reason or another. These are the kids that nobody wants to sit at lunch table with. Literally, they have a lunch table that they're not friends, but they all sit there because nobody wants to be around them. And she takes these kids, and they all become friends, and they all form their brand new Justice Society of America by the end of this season. And it's really a love letter, I feel like, to the Silver Age heroes in so many ways, but not in a cheesy way that is too optimistic. It's very family friendly, very, very family friendly. I watched it with my girls. They loved it. There is some really shocking moments. They don't shy away from killing teenagers. There's several of the teenagers that the main character Courtney becomes friends with. They end up dying over the course of the first season because of the Injustice Society. So you really see, just like, there's no qualms here. The fact that these are kids is not going to keep them safe. The season ended. They finished the storyline that they set out. And then they kind of gave you a little bumper that's like, oh my God, how is that possible? So it's like, if there's not a season 2, you're going to be really disappointed, because you want to find out about that thing that they kind of like, that Easter egg they gave you. But at the same time, it was a complete story. And for that, I really appreciate it. But yeah, I would say if you're looking for something to sit down and watch with your kids, it's not the dark and brooding Arrow. It's just family fun. And Jeff Johns, who was the original creator of Stargirl, he based Stargirl on his sister, who died in a plane crash in the early 90s. And the one thing he said about his sister is she was eternally optimistic. She was this bright, optimistic person. And so he infused the character of Stargirl in the comics with that personality. And so he's also one of the showrunners for Stargirl. And he took the actress who plays Courtney aside and said, this is what I did. This is who I based it on. And she does such a great job. She's even got a dimple. She's a curly hair blonde gymnast who has a little dimple. And she's eternally optimistic. We can do this, and she does have her low points, but then the people around her really come up and they help her. So it's about found family. It's about friendship. It's about courage. It's just such a well done show. It's light. It's entertaining. It's chock full of superhero goodness.
She's not the same actress that was in Legends, was she?
No, that's very different. No, very different.
Because there was a Stargirl in that for an episode, I think.
Yes, when they introduced the 1940s Vixen, we met the Justice Society, but yep, that was on a different Earth.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is for fans of the comics, there are so many little Easter eggs for you. I cannot tell you. Every single episode, I'm sitting next to my husband. He's like, "Ee!" And I'm like, all right, tell me afterwards. What did you see? And there's all these delightful little Easter eggs. If you've read Justice Society of America comics, you will be geeking out all over the place. And even if you didn't, you will love it. The design work is wonderful. It's a great comic superhero kind of show. I just watch it.
All right. Ready for the deep dive?
Yes, but first, a message from the beyond. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Behind every great superhero story is a sleep-deprived author. Join Franklin Kendrick every Friday as he takes you behind the mask and asks today's hottest superhero authors the burning question we all want to know. Do they always write in spandex, or is that just a weekend thing?
And we are back.
All right, so we are going to do a deep dive into season 2 of Umbrella Academy. So, quick season 1 summary is there's a pretty fucked up family that all has kind of superpowers.
Yeah.
Some more than others.
They're all born on the same day at the exact same moment.
And they are adopted by a crazy eccentric billionaire who turns them into a superhero family. And one of them, what number is she? 7?
She's 7, yeah.
She doesn't have powers, but she just kind of gets set aside. And after a while, the family starts to kind of fall apart. Typical familyness starts to happen. And we are started in the story where they all come back together because the father has died. And as we go through the plot, we find out that the apocalypse is going to happen in 8 days. And the teleporter who goes into the future and knows all of this is trying to stop it, and come to find out one of the family members, Vanya, is the person who causes the apocalypse. And while all of this is happening, we have to deal with the Commission, which is a time traveling management bureau who really is a bunch of assassins with cool suitcases.
It's like the Time Bureau from the first couple seasons of Legends, honestly, but like more gruesome. Like,
yeah, and they wear bunny masks.
They wear animal heads. Not all these. We find out not all the assassins wear that, but some of the assassins wear furry heads. And just because, why not?
We don't know why.
We don't know why.
And so the end of the season is to protect themselves from the apocalypse that is about to destroy them. 5 who can teleport through the future, time sometimes better than others, grabs his family and teleports into the past to save them. And that's where we end.
That's where we end it.
And this season picks up the next second. And essentially what happens is he screws up his teleportation, which he does kind of a lot.
All the time.
And he winds up dumping each of his family members in a different year in the early 60s.
In Dallas.
And he doesn't know what's happened. And he falls out of the portal. And we are introduced to... I don't know what their goal was in that opening scene, but...
It's Apocalypse 2.0.
Yeah. And so 5 walks into the middle of a Russian incursion in Dallas, Texas, and all of his family is there, and they have mastered their powers. They are fighting like crazy, and it's
a great scene, actually. Like, it's a really cool superhero fight scene.
Yeah, I mean, and because they all have really weird powers.
Yeah.
and to see them weaponized, I don't even think in the flashbacks as a superhero family you really got to see that. So that was amazing. And we find out that poor Chi-Chi.
What?
The assassins from the first season.
Oh.
They are not in this season, unfortunately.
Well, Hazel shows up.
Yeah.
So Hazel's the guy that fell in love with the woman at the diner. He shows up and he's like, if you want to save, basically, if you want to live, come with me. I mean, that's basically what he says. And he takes 5 and he says, you have 6 days to save your family, take the suitcase. And then all of a sudden, these assassins from the commission show up and they kill Hazel. So he's in it for all of 5 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. And which was a nice end to his story because, I mean, he was an assassin in the first season. The entire first season, there were a handful of things that I wanted. I wanted Hazel to wind up with the woman from the diner. I wanted Chi-Chi to admit that she was in love with Hazel. Unfortunately. Which I did not realize that was Mary J. Blige, which just makes me love her more now.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Now I can't get no more drama out of my head when I see her.
Jeez.
And I wanted Ellen Page to be killed.
What?
I didn't just want her to die a little. I wanted a 3-episode long death scene.
Why? I loved her.
Hate Ellen Page.
Oh my God, dude.
One character who is just perpetually aloof.
Well, she was drugged in the first. I mean, we see her getting off her meds and then having to deal with the fact that she was gaslit, locked in a literal vault, and abused. Like, that's a big mind fuck.
She is only capable of playing the whiny character. As Kitty Pryde in X-Men, never have I wanted Kitty Pryde dead more.
Okay, this is where you and I diverge. I really loved Ellen Page. And I loved her in this season. I really liked her in this season.
She was a lot better in this season. The things that so my big beef with her was she basically, everything about her was very goth. Not in appearance, but in that life sucks, everything's horrible, nothing's going well. And it just got on my nerves.
Okay,
and
all right.
Her story was pointless up to the point where she found out she did have powers. Everyone else was kind of serving a purpose in some way, though really the whole story is about 5 and the rest of the family could have been dead, and it's still...
I don't know, I kind of felt like Diego was a little on the useless side in the first season. Like, he to me was the one that didn't really have a character. I was like, I don't really care about you all that much. Whereas in season 2, I was like, oh, okay, I actually do kind of like you.
And in season 1, Luther was kind of useless. He served a very important role, and he was the last bastion of hope that believed their father was a good person.
Yeah.
And so his entire role was getting that beaten out of him. But he spent an entire season defending him despite obvious...
Well, and then he turns into him at the end of the first season and locks Vanya in the vault, which is one of the reasons why she goes completely apeshit crazy and blows up the moon. I mean, I despised him so much. Okay. This might be the moment to unveil my issues with season 1 and why I really wasn't sure I wanted to watch season 2 of The Umbrella Academy, but it was this or The Boys, and I staunchly refused to watch The Boys. So here we are. You have 2 women. You have 2 superpowered women characters. One of them uses her voice to manipulate people and is proven to be untrustworthy with that. So that's a huge issue to me. You give this woman this really amazing power and she can't be trusted with it. And then you literally take away her voice and her power in one swift motion by having her throat slit. So that was one issue I had. The other issue was that Ellen Page's character easily is Jean Grey of the group. She has these incredible telekinetic powers that really are very Phoenix-like. Because she is the most powerful person in the room. Literally, she could disintegrate all of them with a thought. And you have gaslit her. You have made her the villain. And instead of Five saying, we have to go back and help her, it's we have to go back and save her. So you also take away any agency she might have in her own redemption. And so those things, and it happened like in the last, I think, 2 episodes of season 1. I was along for the ride. I was loving it. And in those last 2 episodes, the showrunners completely obliterated my trust in them. And I was pissed. So that's why I wasn't sure at all I wanted to see season 2, to be honest.
For me in season 1, the same issues, but I'll go even further than that. My issues with the family is they were like, let's give each of them a quirk. Let's dial it to an 11 with no ramifications whatsoever. And let's make a mockery of these quirks. So Klaus is an alcoholic with real maturity issues.
Yeah.
And so that's his whole storyline. There's nothing worth hearing from him. And for the most part, if you deleted him from the first season would be the same. Diego had no personality to speak of. He was the might makes right, so let me kill everything person.
Yeah.
Yet he doesn't. He's nothing more than a talker, not a walker. So he's always like, let's go kill them. But I don't want to.
Yeah.
He was basically the Punisher in Daredevil who never punished anyone.
Exactly.
And then Luther is, again, he served a plot point, but 90% of his plot was, do I want to have sex with my sister?
It's also struggling because now he feels like a monster because of the simian, whatever it is they did to him to save his life, it turned him into this hulking thing, and he feels monstrous, which they totally dropped in season 2, and I was kind of pissed off about, honestly.
Yeah. He all of a sudden he's, no body dysmorphia at all. And so out of all of them, Luther and Five serve a plot. Vanya could have actually been, for the most part, removed from the family and just been a villain. She builds a little bit more as we learn along the way, but Klaus, Ben, and
Allison? Diego.
And even Allison could have just been deleted, and the story would have been the same. So that was my huge issue. It's the same reason that everyone has issues with Suicide Squad. The problem is half of those characters literally can be deleted and the story wouldn't change.
Yeah, that is true.
To begin with.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of my big overarching issues with season 1. The overwhelming quirk, and it was almost like, hey guys, you remember that Klaus is an alcoholic? Because we're gonna make him get drunk again. Oh, do you remember that he makes bad choices? He's about to make one. Again.
Well, and the thing with Klaus that and you bring that up, it is an incredibly fair point, but also what we learn about Klaus is he's an incredibly sensitive individual who was horrifically emotionally abused, like horrifically. And he deals with that with substance abuse, and that is papered over. And like you said, it's made into a punchline. Nobody in the family stops to say, oh my God, what dad did to him. No, and it's not just because they're wrapped up in their own trauma, which they are. Every single one of them is an abuse survivor, and none of them wants to see it. And that's not the only reason they don't have empathy for Klaus. It's just Klaus is annoying. Oh, there he goes again. And it's just like, it was the issue for the vast majority of season 1. and why I think them coming together at the very end when they're like, oh shit, look what we helped cause because we were awful to our sister. She blew up the moon. And in the last, like, not even 5 minutes, they're finally like, oh, we might need to actually work together and start caring about each other more than we care about ourselves. But it was so late in the season that it was like, oh, we don't really get to see that.
And as far as character growth goes, 5 does not grow. So
no, he doesn't.
But his character was solid from the beginning. He's in a young boy's body, but he's a 45-year-old man, or he's lived for 45 years. But his character was cemented, and he's the one out for a goal. Luther has a little bit of evolution, and the rest of them, me.
Yeah.
So,
although Allison, I will say that Allison, and I hated that they did this, but it does give her a somewhat of an arc, this struggle with how she uses her powers and everything like that. And in the moment where she's using them in a way that is genuinely actually a very good way to use them, it's stripped away from her. And so we do see a little bit of character development with Allison towards something positive, and then they just completely rip it away. And the thing that really pissed me off is that in taking away her voice, they took away her ability to influence any of the situations. And it's so, she's trying to tell Luther, don't lock Vanya in there. And Luther, it's not just because she can't physically speak. He basically says, if not outright, this is what is best for you. I know what is best for you. You need to let me take care of you. And you wanted Ellen Page dead. I wanted him dead. I was like, can someone impale him, please? Because I now hate you.
The only 2 characters that I really liked in the first 2 were in the first season was the assassins.
I thought they were awesome.
It's sometimes it was a buddy comedy, sometimes it was a friends to enemies, sometimes it was conspiracy, there was a little romance. Like, I would have just I want the whole show to be from their point of view in season 1.
Yeah.
But the good news is while all these gripes exist for season 1, season 2 listened to me bitch long enough that they fixed most things.
Yes. They definitely, for me, fixed the issues with Allison and Vanya.
Allison, I really liked her storyline.
Yes.
In her story, so they all get sprinkled in different times, but because some people have been there longer, they've had a chance to grow into it. She is a Black woman in Dallas, Texas in the 60s. So civil rights, the movement is happening. It plays a really important role. And not only did she finally does get her voice back, but she has a voice in the rights movement. And when people push back against her, she pushes back.
Yeah.
And I really liked, even when her husband was like, you're not part of this right now because there's some trust issues. She's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, she had so much more agency. Both her and Vanya had so much more agency this season. And I will admit that my trust issues with the showrunners lasted for pretty much the whole season until the last episode. And I was like, okay, I trust you guys now. So I want to go back and rewatch it because I was terrified the whole season that it was going to fall apart like it did in season 1, but it didn't. And I was super happy about that.
So amongst the family, 5 is still 5. Just there's, again, he's an older character, and he does have his ebbs and flows. Like, he kind of reverts back to a child and gets whiny.
Well, and he does have an arc where in the first season he didn't.
Yeah,
a character arc.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Luther.
He annoyed me this season. I hate to say it.
What's that?
He annoyed me this season.
Yeah, because so he starts working for a mobster who ultimately is the person who will go kill Oswald.
Yeah, it's Jack Ruby. He works for Jack Ruby.
And he works with Jack Ruby as basically hired muscle, and that's his plot, and it's over by like episode 3. And then the rest of the time, he's just going to each of the family members, being like, "We should work together."
He's a sad sack. I'm sorry, he's a sad sack. There is literally half an episode of him stuffing his face and crying because Allison is married.
Yeah, and I do have to admit, he did have some amusing scenes where he finally sees her, and he's eating barbecue, and he's like, he wants to hug her, but he doesn't want to get barbecue sauce on her.
Yeah, he's like, mouth and hands are covered in barbecue sauce. He has literally 12 baskets of like picked over ribs in front of him. It's hilarious.
And he has those moments, but he actually just becomes the punchline.
Yeah.
Because there's the ongoing joke of, dude, that's your sister.
Yeah. Well, and he and Diego both are called stupid all throughout first season. And then again, in this season, 5 is basically just like, you guys are dumb as a bag of rocks. And Diego shows initiative and planning and strategy. Like he shows that that's not all he is. But I feel like with Luther, they were like, yeah, we're just going to make him the dumb as a bag of rocks muscle. And I was so disappointed by that, honestly, because I felt like he had this really soulful pain going on, like his betrayal, a sense of betrayal from his dad and what his dad did to him and how it makes him different. And they just completely dropped that in season 2. And I thought that was a mistake.
Even when he does finally meet his father in season 2, like the first time when they're at the party, and he sees them, it's just like, oh, that's dad.
Yeah.
And it's not until they're sitting at the table with the tiki in the tiki lounge where Luther finally flips out.
Yeah.
And I was like, finally, we're 7 episodes into season 2 and your plot from season 1 just got resolved.
But it was resolved way too fast.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It was over.
Yeah.
And so the Diego's plot line is all revolved around so in season 1 he had no plot whatsoever. He was such a shallow husk of a character. And in season 2 someone goes, well, we should probably give him a little motivation, so let's make it revolve kind of around him. And season 2 does mostly revolve around him.
Actually, I think season 2 did a great job, with the exception of Luther, of having the plot revolve in different points around each person. Each person, what they do, the choices they make directly influences the plot. So it's not like season 1 where you can just remove them and everything is the same, except for Luther. I do think you could remove Luther, and I'm not sure things would change very much.
Literally, Luther's main point in the plot was, go to the farm and get Vanya, go get Allison, go do this. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
He was
a little errand boy.
Useless. Diego had a romance subplot, which was...
It was so entertaining. I was like, she's perfect for him. And then you find out that she's working for the commission, and it's still like, no, she's still perfect for him.
It is 2 extremely unhealthy people who have found matching baggage.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines from the entire second season is, you are an open book written for very dumb children. Like, that's what she says to him. And it is one of the most perfect encapsulations of Diego ever. It's so good.
And he actually has a little bit of multi-dimension, because he's obsessed with saving Kennedy.
Yeah.
That's like his thing. But he knows that it's wrong because it's going to alter the past, but he can't let it go. But meanwhile, like, he can't see the things that are happening around him because he's so fixated. But he does get some romance interlude in there. He does get a little bit of questioning his motivation, his sanity.
And there's a confrontation about his relationship with his dad. It's heavy. See, this is where I like, but I hate what they did with Diego, because the whole thing where he gets committed to an asylum because he's talking about how Kennedy is going to die, and people think he's absolutely crazy. But the first time you see him in the asylum, they're basically talking about his daddy issues and how he feels like he needs to be a hero to make his father happy, to live up to the expectations of his father. And I was like, well, that is it. That is Diego in a nutshell. That is his trauma packaged up very neatly. And I felt like it was super heavy-handed, the way that they presented it. But then at the same time, he was trying to deal with that the whole rest of the season. It wasn't like, okay, we've confronted it and we're all better now, like it was with Luther in the Tiki Lounge. It was, he was denying it. He's like, no, that's not it. That's not it at all. But every action he took towards saving Kennedy, that's exactly what it was. That was his issue.
And when the father becomes the potential killer of Kennedy, so piece of the plot, his motivation evolves to where it's not, I'm doing it for dad, I'm doing it to stop dad.
Yeah, and in fact, he doesn't even go for Lee Harvey Oswald. He sees what ends up being a doppelganger for his dad on the grassy knoll, and he goes and attacks him.
And so I just liked that there were key moments where his motivation and his character had very clear and distinct evolutions.
Mm-hmm.
And the poor dude who they take over his house.
That was one moment. His death was one moment where I was like, okay, you might have gone a little too far for me. I mean, I don't mind some blood and guts in my action scenes. Like I could watch John Wick all fucking day long, but there was something about that for me personally crossed an internal line, and I'm not really sure why.
It's because he was created to be an emotional point. He served no other real purpose.
That's true.
He's
the everyman
dude.
Yeah.
That you knew was going to die.
Yeah, he liked to make Jell-O molds, which was just such a weird quirk. It was so bizarre.
You know who he is? Did you watch Stranger Things?
Oh yeah.
He's
Sean Astin.
He's Sean Astin. He was only created to have an emotional death.
Yep.
But what I did like is he did serve a little purpose with Diego. Diego almost got a little protective of him.
Yeah, very protective. He did. He got really pissed that he died. And also, he was so he served the purpose at the beginning of helping Five find everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is a conspiracy theorist, and he ended up taking pictures of everybody that lands. They all land in the same alley, and he would take pictures of them when they landed. So he helped Five find everybody.
And can I just add, I really liked his apartment.
Oh my God. It was incredible.
It was huge. It was above the floor. Like it was awesome.
Did it remind you of the library from season 1? Remember the library Five? Yeah, I thought it was the same place, but it wasn't. I don't know if it was the same set and they just dressed it differently, but it had the exact same setup
and the balcony
as the library.
So I hated Vanya a lot less in this one. And
I'm glad, because I really liked her in this season.
It just goes to show you, when a character is so poorly written that everyone hates her, you just need to give her amnesia.
Okay, that was one thing I wasn't sure how I felt about, because it was a little soap opera-y. I'm going to be honest. But they redeemed it with everything else they did with her character, I felt like.
They had to. So
I had to retcon her.
Her character was a wretched human being in the first season. Like, they didn't know what to do with her, so they just put every bit of angst into her.
Yeah. And
to reset her character, they gave her amnesia. And she did get angsty, but it was earned angst at that point.
Yeah.
And it was a slow buildup. Whereas in season 1, you were just introduced to this girl who her life sucked.
Well, and also, instead of having a negative arc like she did in the first season, she had a positive arc. And she had agency, and she was empowered. And I do want to talk about the scene So she's about to go nuclear again in the federal building. And I was getting all ready to be pissed off. I'm not going to lie. I was getting ready to be super pissed. And Klaus, Allison, and Diego, Diego figures out what's going on. He gets Klaus and Allison, and they go and they try to reach her, but her powers are so strong, none of them can get through the power that she's emanating. But then Ben shows up as a ghost, and he goes and he possesses her. And the scene where Ben and Vanya are talking, and I might get a little emotional, but I thought that was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen in terms of he acknowledged her feelings. He said, it's okay that you feel this way. He acknowledged her experiences of abuse as abuse and told her, you have every right to be this way. He never once said, you need to get over this. He never once said, you're making everything worse. It was utter and complete acknowledgement of what she had gone through and her right to feel that way. And it began the process of healing for her. And it was so simple and so beautiful and so profound. I thought it was amazing.
And Ben this season Ben died many, many years ago, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And Klaus keeps him alive, basically. And so we don't even know what the plot is between them at this point. Just Klaus's ability is to see the dead and to manifest them. And Ben is just along for the ride. And so Ben is removed from the family. He's got this weird abstract view of what's happening. And he is the only one who acknowledges everyone's messed up situation.
That is true.
And because he's removed, he observes, because that's all he can do. And when he goes, he learns to possess Klaus, and there's comedy ensues.
It's hands down one of the best physical comedies I think I've ever seen in my life.
And then when him and Vanya finally meet, he's the first person who looks at the family and goes, look, we had it rough. And he's the only person who's self-aware for the most part.
And he's dead. It's because he's dead.
And so it was great, and he gets a send-off. It's a beautiful death because it's self-sacrifice for the greater good. And it was just it was quality done. And then it was kind of almost, it's the end of the season. But wait, we've got another episode.
There's more.
And that last episode was such a waste, to be honest.
Seriously, I loved it. I loved it because we see the culmination of all their character arcs. That the culmination of Five's character arc happens in that episode, in my opinion.
My problem was the woman's child,
Harlan, is just a weird thing, because it happened like 5 episodes earlier, and it's like, we're not going to talk about it. Guess what? It's now the actual end of the plot. It took me a while. Dan and I were both like, how are they connected? How is this going on? Because even though it's very obvious, they don't try to hide the fact that somehow Vanya establishes a connection with him when she does CPR, but it is one of those things that you kind of forget. You're like, oh, okay, it happened. But then they bring it up again. They actually do bring it up again when Vanya realizes she's connected to him. And so you realize, oh, okay, this is what's going on here.
But there were like 4 episodes where it was never brought up. And I just thought they needed a moment where to hint at it. Like it was just, oh yeah, that was a thing. So that was my only, and I think if they had done that, the last episode would have pulled in tighter. But you are right. The story arc wise, it was, well, we defeated the big bad, Vanya, but now we actually have to work together to be better.
And the moment I love for Five, because so Vanya asks them, she realizes something's going on with Harlan. She needs to go help him. And she says, I don't want to do this alone anymore. I need my family. And they all at first are like, sorry, no, we have to figure out this other thing. And one by one, they get in the car with her. And the one that I felt that was the most profound was 5, because 5 is the one I could see going, no, fuck you guys. I'm going to go do what needs to be done. Because that's been him the whole time. He knows better than everybody. When he showed up at the car window, I actually teared up, because it was this moment of, she's my sister and she needs me. And we have never seen him do that before.
Well, and that's, it definitely spoke to a family dynamic, because they never get along with anything. Like, they all hate each other most of the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess we should do a family moment. Like, it's almost like they're like, yeah, my asshole quota has been filled. I guess now I'll switch.
Well, and Luther has that moment too, when Lily is like, I'm going to kill your brother. And at first he thinks she's talking about Diego, and she's like, no, 5. And he's like, oh yeah, I can understand that too, but you're shit out of luck because they're family. And it was a great moment for Luther. It was one of the very few really good character moments he had, where he was like, it doesn't matter how much of an asshole they are, they're my brothers.
And then the final fight scene was meh.
It was a little anticlimactic, I'm not gonna lie.
Partly because the first episode set that bar so high.
Yeah.
That the last, you just wanted a little more working in concert instead of, okay, it's your turn. Okay, now it's your turn. Okay, now you.
Well, and they have the Superman / Jean Grey problem. You literally have the most powerful person in the universe there. And they use her like you should use her. Like, Vanya sends out this wave that takes out the thousands and literal thousands of commissioner agents that are there to kill them all, except for Lily. And I thought this was fucking spectacular, that you find out that she is one of the 40 some odd kids that were born just like the rest of them. And her power is she can mimic anybody else's superpower when she sees it. It was brilliant.
And I like that each of them got a chance to weaponize it. But again, that first episode, I just wanted a little more of a concert movement.
Yeah, I agree with you about that.
Because it literally was, oh, I'm tapped out, next.
Yeah.
You guys were a crime-fighting family, like.
Well, and that opening scene was every superhero nerd's wet dream. I mean, honestly, it was awesome. And yeah, you're right. It does the climactic battle doesn't. It's less than that one was.
And it's kind of funny because in 8 days they learned to use their powers like that.
I know. I was like, I call bullshit.
They haven't learned jack shit.
Yeah, I know.
So there is a little bit of a consistency error, but from a visual spectacle, I definitely got it.
Yeah, agreed.
The whole Lily getting worked into the family dynamic, and
I loved that moment. I loved it.
It was well done, though. There was a potential for a little longer. Basically, only her and 5 get to fight. And then you were like, wait a second, we have a time traveling person. Everyone's dead. Wait for the plot. Wait for it. Wait. Oh, I'm going back in time to fix it.
But that was also part of his character arc.
Yeah.
Because he'd been so arrogant and convinced that he didn't need to take anything slow that he actually took the note so he could save his family. Which,
weirdly enough, comes from their dad.
Very weirdly enough. It's like the one good parenting moment the man ever had.
And there were other things, like, you can tell that there was certain fan service happening where they brought Pogo back. He served nothing in the plot.
Nothing. Well, and honestly, let's be honest, Klaus's whole becoming a cult leader was total fan service. That was so people could see Klaus being goofy and weird, and that's all that really was.
Klaus's real moment, and this I actually got a little bit choked up about, him and Ben are constantly fighting about what they should and shouldn't be doing because Ben has no agency physically.
Mhm.
And so Klaus decides he's going to save his partner who died in the first season in World War II.
No, in Vietnam.
In Vietnam, yeah. And so he meets him as a young boy and tries to influence it. And you realize nothing about it changes.
Yeah.
And it was weird in the fact that it's a tragedy that's already happened and you're watching it happen now in slow motion.
But in a different way. Like, oh God, you're right. That was heartbreaking. And he ends up actually moving up the timeline of when this guy enlists.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's probable that Klaus will end up never meeting him. And it's just fucking tragic.
And it's the reason why Klaus is this alcoholic and the reason he's so whatever with the universe. Like it's a reasoning behind everything, but those interactions were so much better. The cult thing was basically the show's really dark and we need some funny moment.
Yeah,
Not funny at all.
I didn't like that. I didn't like Klaus being a cult leader. I mean, I guess it works with this early 60s, but it was kind of amusing to see him turn song lyrics into like quotes of wisdom. But
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Yeah.
The rivers and lakes that you're used to.
That got old really fast though.
And it was referenced in the first couple episodes, but we saw him kind of detach from it. But then there's like a couple episodes where he goes back and you're like, you're just falling back in. Oh, you're just going to do that thing that Klaus always does where you go on a binge.
Yeah. I would say Klaus and Luther probably had the least amount of character growth in this season, which was super disappointing. I'm going to be honest.
Well, Klaus had major character growth, but it was like, we're going to take it all into a 30-second thing.
Oh, that's true.
He believes that the reason Ben is around is because he prevented Ben from going to the light and going to heaven. Right. And that is the actual trauma that makes him who he is.
That's right.
So he believes that he screwed Ben over, and that's why he is the way he is. So we get a major reveal, but it literally is maybe a 10-second spot.
And they don't set it up. I'm sorry, but they don't.
No.
When he had that moment, I was like, oh, he's been feeling guilty about this. They don't show that. They don't show you anything that has any inclination or anything towards him feeling guilty that he cheated Ben out of heaven.
Yeah, and there were moments throughout the whole season where they could have referenced it in many ways.
Yeah, and they didn't.
So it was a great moment, and it explains a lot, but it was almost like, oh shit, we forgot to put that into the story. Just leave it.
It was unearned. It was an unearned moment, unfortunately.
One of my favorite moments in the whole thing. So 5 decides to go deal with the devil, who is the head of the commission, and promises to make her head of the commission by killing the board. And that teleport fight scene was priceless. But the thing that made it even better was the vending machine beforehand. So
I was like, what is wrong with him?
So 5 is weird in the fact that he's a 45-year-old in a preteen body, and he is at the board meeting before he goes to kill everyone. He wants something out of a vending machine, and he basically beats the snot out of a vending machine like a giant man-child.
Yeah.
And then when he basically destroys the vending machine, he's like, okay, time to move along, grabs an axe and goes and slaughters a dozen people.
Yeah.
And
it's probably the bloodiest moment of the entire season, honestly. Yeah. That was really fucking gruesome.
And the whole season, they did a really good job of, he throws temper tantrums.
Yeah.
He's a giant child. but a mature child, but no, a juvenile child, but no. And they got the balance of that correct this season.
And can we just give props to that actor? He's 17. Yeah. This is his first acting gig. He's a legacy. So his dad is a producer, and he had told his dad when he was like 12 or 13 or something, he's like, I think I want to be a director when I grow up. So his dad's like, okay, go on set and observe. So to his dad's credit, he didn't say, okay, I'm going to give you money and you can go direct. No, he's like, go on set, observe, see what you see where a good place to start might be. So he decides to act. And so one of his first acting jobs is this show. And with Hollywood legacies, you really are taking a chance because half the time they are talentless. I'm sorry to say it. Or the actress that plays Laurel on Arrow. Don't hate me. She's awful. She's a Cassidy. Yeah. But this kid, let's just give him the props that he's more than owed, because I believe he's a 45-year-old man stuck in a 14-year-old body. Like, I buy that shit completely.
And just so angry.
So angry.
Like, the bitterness, like, it manifests in a comical way that's not meant to be comical, which is why it's so well.
And him hitting on the cocktail waitress in one of the early episodes, I was like, that's fucking priceless.
He's definitely the forward. But I will say this season, Diego kind of rivaled him as far as plot importance. And I just kind of like that, it's not the 5 show.
Yeah, agreed.
You still got the best of 5.
Agreed. And I like it that it wasn't 5 that figured out what caused the apocalypse this time. It was Diego. Acting smartly. Like he's thrown into this weird ass situation by Lily, but he ends up seeing, hey, I have an opportunity here to get some inside intel on the commission. I'm going to take it. And he does. And he figures out what the hell is going on.
Can we talk about the milkmen?
Okay. Am I the only one that found them like over the top creepy?
You could delete them and the plot would be the same.
You still needed assassins, but they didn't need to be those guys.
They served no purpose in the plot whatsoever.
Yeah, they wanted quirky assassins again, but they didn't want to repeat Chi-Chi and Hazel.
And so every time they got service on screen by themselves, you were like, you're the creepy dude in the ice cream truck. Like,
to their credit, I thought those actors did a great job with basically having no lines. Yeah. They did a fantastic job of being hands down the creepiest of the creepy.
But if you could have deleted them, Allison killing them wouldn't have mattered. The only good thing out of that was when what's his name shows up and references the body removal service, or when Allison's like, who was it that shows up and asks how to dispose the body?
Well, Klaus shows up at her house and is like, okay, are we burning or burying?
Yeah. That was the best part of it. But otherwise, they were a plot device that
they weren't well used. Can we also, though, appreciate, and I cannot remember the actress's name who plays the handler. Can we just stand up and applaud the fact that she chews scenery like a fucking pro? She was so good. And I loved her in season 1, but it was like she turned it up to 12 and did it so well. It could have easily devolved into parody and way too over the top, and it didn't. She tread that line like a ballet dancer, and she was amazing this season.
Who is the actress from Bridesmaids? The blonde.
Which, Kristen Wiig?
That's who I thought she was the whole time.
Oh, really? No, she's a longtime actress.
Yeah, I finally looked up her role, and I was like, I don't recognize the name, but she's got credits. But her delivery and her slightly sarcastic but always a little giggle.
Yeah.
Just made me think of Kristen Wiig for some reason.
And she'll take the simplest of lines and she'll deliver it almost like cheerfully, but you're chilled to the bone because you're like, oh my God, this woman is psychotic. Like she's terrifying.
She is the other side of the coin of Harley Quinn.
Yes. She's without the frenetic energy, she basically is Harley Quinn.
Yeah, she'll kill you with a smile.
Exactly. Oh, and she does. She totally does.
And then the season ends where they get back to normal time. They stop the apocalypse again because, that's what they do. And they go back to their house and they're like, oh, everything's peachy fine. But our dad's alive. And they're like, Dad. And he's like, you're not my kids, which was an ongoing gag throughout the whole thing that didn't make any sense, but whatever. And they're like, this is the Umbrella Academy. And he was like, no, it's the Sparrow Academy. And who shows up? But
Ben.
Which I am happy that Ben gets a new role.
You know what? I'm not actually. I'm so tired of deaths being retconned. He had a beautiful, meaningful send-off. Let him be dead, please.
And he is dead. This isn't the same character. So that's the only reason I'm okay with it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't want it to be Ben. I want him to be the villain and be evil.
I do too. That's a good point. It could be, yeah. There was a part of me that was disappointed. I'm going to be honest. I was like, you could have chosen anybody else.
It's a comic book. It's basically the Arrow. Everyone's not dead. They come back.
Anyway, so they did resolve the main storyline. Yay, no apocalypse, but they altered the timeline so drastically that their dad never adopted them. There is no Umbrella Academy, and now what the hell are they going to do?
But they're so, don't go into this thinking for chronology's sake. The dad would know who they are.
Well, he does. And in fact, he said, I was wondering when you would show up again. That's the first thing he says to them is, I was wondering when you would show up again, because he met all of them in 1963.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because I don't remember that, because I was like, you would know this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Dan's theory is that because the girlfriend that eventually became his wife broke up with him because of those meddling kids, that she had been a softening influence on him. And so that change is why we don't have the Umbrella Academy. We have the Sparrow Academy.
Oh, so I hope the mom gets a role again then.
It'll be interesting to see if she does.
And I'm glad that, it's not going to be Apocalypse 3.0 because boring.
Yeah, I'm really glad we're not retreading that old ground because that would totally suck.
What's Anya going to do this season?
Well, I think our question of the week needs to be, did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you guys think of the Umbrella Academy Season 2?
Yeah. Let me know who your favorite character is or your least favorite.
I'm going to say, honestly, one of my favorite character, and this might be an unpopular opinion, is the handler. I love her. And as much as I absolutely hate her.
My favorite character for Season 2 is Allison.
Oh, she was amazing. She was just, she was great.
The completely pointless dance scene.
In the shop?
Yeah. I was like, exactly what I want from this show.
Yep. That was perfect.
Their quirk was dialed down to a 9.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Answer the question of the week over on, where are we putting these on the page or are we putting them in the group?
They're in the superhero reader group.
Okay, so join the reader group, answer the question of the week.
And you can find all of that by going to superherofiction.com.
Bye, everybody. To stay up to date with the Geekorama podcast, you can watch our videos on YouTube or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And if you enjoy the show, leave us a review or hit the thumbs up button. New episodes are released on Thursdays for podcast listeners and YouTube fans.